Uh, slightly different, Tanveer. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to know your quantitative skills. You need to know you need to have your basic financial knowledge. You get a lot of opportunities to build these, given what studies you pursue and what you learn on the job once you join, right? But it's very important for you to know the importance of balance. You need to be aware that there is another aspect of balance which you need to create, because without it, nothing else really works, right? You could know all the, if I were to take an example of what we were discussing earlier, you could know that 10 into 12 is 120, but if nobody is willing to listen to you, if you can't get into the room, if you don't have credibility, if the CEO that you say this to will wonder that, is 10 really the number, does he know what he's talking about, it does, then you don't get anything done, right? So yeah,
Correct. Correct.
just converting it into our context, the balance is the mindset. This is actually what sets a successful investment banker apart from an unsuccessful one. Same for investment manager, anybody in a high paying core finance job. This is what sets them apart. And it's a random assortment of words. Again, you can find a similar list online. You don't have to consider this gospel. But at the same time, this is not theory anymore. All of this has a monetary value. These are things which get you your job, which get you your promotion, your bonus, or lack of these things are what prevent you from getting that job or from growing within that job and can possibly get you fired. Just to take a quick example, I have seen actual situations where if you are not organized and you did not notice that you got an email and you didn't react to it for an hour and a half, you might have just burned 7 lakh rupees of profit. It's gone. And 7 lakh rupees of profit. In terms of revenue, you burned 21 lakh rupees. And it's just destroyed on the spot. So imagine what your bonus was going to be. Probably not 7 lakh rupees at an early level, but wouldn't matter anymore because you won't get it now, right? So essentially the point is, sorry, can you? So essentially the point is, I'm not going to start giving you guys a lecture on critical thinking right now. At your level, just be aware that these things which sound boring and theoretical are what will decide whether you get in the door and whether you succeed. So along the way, you need to keep these in mind, that am I developing these things, right? And essentially there are these two parts, let's say technical skills and the mindset that you need. Some of it is hard work and it's meant to be so if you want a high growth, fast moving career. So in the next slide, let's move on to, let's say you can learn all of this. There is nothing that I've said so far which uh, indicates that any of you would not be able to do any of this. But the bigger question is, should you do it? So I apologize for the ugly diagram. It may be ugly, but it's a surprisingly great and surprisingly robust metaphor for the difference in the life of a, let's say, investment banker and someone who took a more conventional career path in finance. So, and this is, by the way, the first point of the two, which I would request that please try to retain going forward. It can make a big impact in your career. So, what am I trying to accomplish in this ugly diagram? So, let's say, sorry, then we can go back. So, just let's say that there's a mountain at the top of which is your goal, whatever, like, your CEO designation, your fancy car, your 5 crore bonus, whatever excites you, whatever you picture as achievement in this kind of a career, right? Now you can take one of two paths. You can hike up the winding path along the mountain, or let's say there's a tunnel right in the middle of it. You can get in, climb a ladder to the top, right? As you would remember from maths, the shortest distance between any 2 points is the direct line. So clearly the ladder is way faster. The ladder is your demanding career. It's your investment bank. It's your private equity fund. And the hike is something which is a little more easygoing. So everything which is different about these two career paths can be presented in this kind of a framework, right? If you choose the ladder, you will be cut off from the world. You will not have a view. You will be climbing night and day. It's going to be hard work. You may feel a little isolated, right? It's just you and the ladder, and you're constantly going up. Now think of the hike. You could choose your pace. You could run for a while. You could slow down for a while. You could stop, have a picnic. If someone is moving slow, you can bypass them and go faster. It's a surprisingly good metaphor. Think anything you can think of, it will hold true. So these are the two options. There is nothing wrong with either of them, right? Both have a lot going for them. One more thing to notice is the blobs that I've put along the way. So at regular intervals, both paths cross each other, and that's an entry exit point. You can think of it that way. That that's something Tanveer was saying earlier. Sometimes you start out in a fast-paced career and you decide that you don't want to continue that indefinitely. So you could potentially walk out, take the hike for a while, go back to tunnel, back and forth. These things are available, but only at certain stages. So if let's say you're between two exits, then your only option if you want to get out of that tunnel, either climb to the next level and then move out or go back down. That's the cost, right? You cannot, if you're a second year analyst, you can either wait till you become an associate or you can go back and start from scratch as nothing. So that's the risk. And that's why it's very important to be selective about whether you want to take the hike or the ladder. And that's the reason why when you approach the entrance to that tunnel, the ladder, the guy standing there will be very selective. If they feel that you don't demonstrate both the technical and the mindset skills that we talked about, they will literally tell you to take a hike.
So yeah, so basically what you're trying to say, it's a competitive world. It's very competitive. So whatever, just trying to brush it up, Devashish. So we have about 15 minutes. We are, I think, 10 minutes behind schedule.
Mhm.
We'll just brush it up a little. So for the students, if you think that a career is competitive, medicine is competitive, if getting into the IITs is competitive, investment banking is at par. So getting into IITs, getting into medicine, just compare it with getting into investment is at par, and it's at that kind of competitive, and you really have to shine through. That means if you want to be there, start putting in the hard work, and then nothing can stop you. So Devashish, over to you.
Yeah, so exactly what Tanveer said. Also, what I'm trying to highlight is that you need to make a conscious decision that if you do you want to take that ladder or do you want to take the hike? Both are, there is no wrong answer, but you have to be deliberate about this decision. And here you can move on, Tanveer. So just to sum up everything that we were just talking about, competitive, isolated. You may have to, if you are on the ladder and you decide that you want an easier life, it will cost you. All of this can be summed up in what is called an up or out culture. So investment banking has an up or out culture. If you are in a team in investment banking, and teams are small by design, your team would be 5 to 10 people, it's not going to be 50 people. You either continue to perform and you rise to the next level, or you move out. So that's just a harshness of it. So the message I'm trying to convey is, if you want to enter this kind of a field, you need two critical things. You need to have a good reason, and it's your reason, right? It's what keeps you going. That when you are putting in 20-hour days and you're tired, you're burnt out, you're sleep deprived, what keeps you going, right? It has to be a strong reason and it's personal to you. It can be anything. I'm not saying that it can't be money, it can't be social status, can be anything. It just needs to be meaningful enough for you to keep you going. And secondly, you need to be willing to sacrifice, because both uh, the reason and sacrifice will be very real. They will be personal to you. So you will not get time for whatever is important to you, right? At the end of the day, I remember I was told that if you join investment banking, you don't have time for partying. And I thought that's not a big price to pay. But what I actually ended up having to give up is sports, right? Someone might end up giving up time that they want to spend with family. So in your analyst years, you will make hard sacrifices without exception. So these are two things you need to be mentally prepared for. We can carry on, Tanvir. So let's say, and this is the last ugly diagram I'll use. So let's say you understand what it is and you are interested, you are somewhat inclined at least towards testing out this career. How do you go about it? So first of all, just understand that this getting into this career, just like working in this career, requires strategy and tactics, right? So a strategy is a long-term thing. I'm using the example of bowling because you are at point A, you want to get your ball to point B. If you throw it right, you win. But on the right hand side, you have a pinball machine. So you launch a ball and it hits random things, it moves in random directions. You don't have complete control. Your initial strategy is forgotten at the first collision of the ball with any object. And you need maneuverability. So you need tactics, something which keeps your strategy going. So that's what it's like to navigate this career, getting into it, as well as that's what your work will be like once you're in the door. So Tanvir, we can move on. So yes, just talking about strategy and tactics. Strategy is basically where you are now, what do you have going for you, and where do you want to be, and what gets you there. Very simple stuff. Tactics are basically what keeps you on this path, right? So if you would notice this very layman's definition of strategy, it should remind you of something very simple, which is a story. So we can move on, Tanvir. So at the end of the day, any strategy, be it your career strategy, your company's organizational strategy, a deal strategy, everything, it's always a story. And it has two parts. You build your story and you learn to sell, because if you can't sell it, then it doesn't unlock any value, right? So in building your story, you have to do a lot of, let's say, self-reflection, and you have to do a lot of deliberate resume building, for want of a better word. So you will focus on things which are particular about you, your experiences, your technical skills, your credentials, your specific knowledge, all these things, and all the ingredients you add to this can come together, create a powerful story, which will get you your job, which will get you into a business school, which will allow you to do a deal. It will get you into a boardroom where a CEO will listen when you say that 12 into 10 is 120. And learning to sell the story is just creativity and confidence, and equally importantly, knowing when not to oversell, right? So let me take a specific example. So can we move on, Tanvir? So this is me. This is an example of me. So let's say if you look at the stuff on the left hand side, this is just a bulleted list of things that I could put together as ingredients with which I'll build my story. Imagine if I send this bulleted list to someone and ask for a job. Will I get it? Like, I don't think so, right? It does not have impact. It has a lot of, it signifies hard work, it signifies a lot of credentials, but it accomplishes nothing. And that's why converting it into something that can be sold, which can be, which someone will believe and act upon and remember, is important. And that's what you would need to do to chart your own path. So on the right hand side, I tried to pull out some story elements from all of these bullets. And I'll not force you to read this stuff, but Tanvir, if we move on, so the final output is this. This is essentially what Tanvir told you guys in my introduction. So this is what came out of that bullet list. And this is frankly what got me my job in SAMI. It got me my admission at Cornell. And right now, this is what Cornell is asking me to prepare and update for my way forward. So cannot embellish the importance of this enough. Just understanding the relevance of the storytelling concept is the second thing that you should retain from this conversation.
So
It's
just,
the yeah, yeah, Tanvir.
sorry, please carry on. I thought you stopped. Sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, so I'm just saying this is the second most important aspect. So yeah, this is not a workshop on storytelling, but just remember this, that in our session, this alumni showed up, told us storytelling is really important because it will define your career in this kind of a field if you choose to take it up. So
Yeah,
yeah, Tanvi.
I'll just add a point. So what we are talking students, it's important to get the right resume. It's important to show your skills properly. It's important to present them properly. It's important to tell your life story properly. So that's the important takeaway, that what you did in life, how you got here, what you plan to do, that's your life story. And it's in your hands to make it interesting. It's in your hands to make it exciting, and it's in your hands to present it in a way that the person in front says, "Oh wow, you've actually done something from your life." It's not important. It's not necessary that you need to be in an IIT or you need to be in the top tier colleges to have that life. It's what small instances in your life that build your story, and that's where the storytelling component will be a very big part of what the real world today has in store for you. So make sure that you make it an interesting one. Every small experience, every small learning, every small decision that you take which has impacted your life is part of that story. Okay, so yeah, Devafish, over to you.
Um, exactly the point, Tanveer. Way to sum it up. And if you move on to the next slide, then that kind of conveys the same message. Yeah. So as Tanveer and I were both saying, you have to create impact with your story, and your story is your story at the end of the day. And as I mentioned way up front, there is no set path. If you, let's say, want to be an investment banker, or if you want to be an investment professional, I wanted to work on investing in hotels, buying hotels. Maybe you want to, be the person who invests in movies. You could work for a publishing company, that you could work for Netflix, on the other hand, and you could be the person acquiring new content for them. You could be the person acquiring new novels for a publishing company, tying up with new authors. It can go in various ways, and it's a huge ocean of opportunities out there. And there is no one path. There is no right path. And the good news is there is no wrong path. So if you look at this diagram, which is meant to be messy, you'll notice that you can follow anything across this screen and get to what we are talking about. You can do an undergrad degree in pretty much anything. Then you can work directly for a fund or an investment bank, and that takes you forward. Or you can work in something completely different and add more credentials and move into this kind of a role that takes you forward, right? Doing an MBA at a post associate level is very common, and that's considered the traditional way to go about it. But even that is not set in stone. There are plenty of people who don't do that and still get ahead in this career. There are people who start their own companies, go the entrepreneur way, and then come back to this kind of a field. You find a couple of people with PhDs in the field, right? I actually have a friend who did medical in school, then did English honors from Hindu College, went to Narsi Munji, got an MBA in finance, and is an investment banker now, doing very well. The point is, it's your path. It needs to make sense to you, and you should be able to build it and sell it sensibly to your audience. And that's it. There's no formula. I Yeah, I would have one tip for you, though, one practical thing that you can consider. Make a resume for the job you'd want 5 years from now, and notice the blanks. You will notice, okay, I should put four bullets for technical skills. I have one right now. That means you need three more to add to it. And that's something you can work on for the next 5 years. Similarly, you might want to add on some co-curriculars to give a more rounded image. See, this is actually a great technique because this allows you to organically build towards your goal rather
So
than trying to create it last moment before your MBA interview or your job interview.
that's a very nice tip, Devashish. That's actually, I think, a very key piece of advice. So, but the question from the student side will be, how do I know? How do I know what someone who wants to buy and sell hotels will need? What kind of credentials they will need, right? Uh, Answer that question with what we are trying to do. So, if you saw in the beginning, and you will see there is an email ID that has been given to you. We've had a lot of alumni who come and spoken to you. So, if you need help and you want to understand whether this kind of a career or the other webinars that we've done, uh, what will be the credentials required, what will be the details required, feel free to mail it to us. We will get the alumni expert to share his thoughts and answers directly with you. And that will actually help you build this resume. And it's very important. This will kind of give you that vision of what 5 years will look like. And then you have your vision, the time is to work towards it. So, if you have questions, send it out to us. Devashish is here to answer any questions that you have. Devashish, over to you.
All right, Tanvi, let me just quickly close out the one or two discussion points left. So let's quickly run through the rest of, yeah. So yeah, some advice for you guys. One strategic advice, don't do a premature MBA. So not all MBAs are made the same. I'm not saying one is inferior and one is superior, but uh, an IIM MBA is very different from an ISB MBA, which is very different from a Cornell 2 year MBA, which is different from a Cornell 1 year MBA, which I'm doing. So essentially, you need to do your MBA at the right time, keeping in mind what are its that program's prerequisites and what is its end goal, right? Going to MDI, let's say, right after college, will not give you the same outcome that going to Harvard would 5 years later. The role for which you will recruit will be different. What you will learn will be different. The experience you have will be different. One broad thing to remember about an MBA at this level, just to understand, is MBA helps with your story building and story selling, but more with the story selling, right? You can feel free to read this slide. I'm sure it'll be made available to you. But broadly, you need to bring your best self into your MBA program, and it packages and laminates you and makes you more sellable. So bear that in mind. I guess in interest of time, we can move on, Tanveer. Some tactical advice.
Just one thought, Devashish, sorry, cutting you. So,
Sure.
on the point of the MBA, as Devashish mentioned, not all MBAs are made the same. So, that's very important. In the rush of doing an MBA, you might forget that. If you don't get the right guidance, you might forget that. But also, one more thing which is very important is you need to know yourself. So knowing yourself means how do you study, for example? Can you study at a stretch? Can you study after a 2 year or a 3 year or 4 year break? What kind of a mindset you have? What kind of an attitude you have? Right? If you take this 3 year, 4 year experience and then you are totally out of touch of study. So you need to know yourself and then decide how you want to build your career. That's a very important point because a lot of times I've seen my friends who've missed out on opportunities because they thought they can do something which was against their very nature. So know yourself, what you can do, and then build your career accordingly. Whether you want to do MBA immediately after 1 year, after 2 year, after 7 years, like or 8 years, like they said, you need to know how to build that up.
Yeah, and just to add two things to that. So also remember your MBA is a big investment, not just in terms of money. It is a cost, it has a high fee, but it's a big investment because you are investing 2 years or 1 year of your life and you're putting yourself on a path. And if that's not the path that you wanted in the long run, if a year into that path you realize, oh, I wanted to take a 90-degree turn there, then that investment may not have made a lot of sense historically. To give you a clear example, So right now in my batch in Cornell, there are 12 other Indians, six of whom have a prior MBA degree. So they are doing a second MBA because they want to change directions. So, just bear that in mind. Don't do it at the wrong time. It may be a missed opportunity, or you may end up redoing it later. Onto this slide, again, if you choose the ladder that we discussed in the ugly diagram, you are already on the shortcut. You're already taking a shortcut. Don't try to cut it more short. Don't be this person, right? Don't try to run up the ladder. The person above you is in all likelihood smart, and they know a lot of the same things that you do. They will not let you climb over them. And more to the point, this is the time to learn your skills, right? This is the time when you can ask basic questions, learn basic stuff. You don't get to do that later. Right now, I don't think any of you will dare ask Raman sir, what's the difference between a square and a rhombus, right? But you could have asked him that 4 years ago. So essentially, similarly, learn your financial modeling, your research when you're an analyst. Don't try to jump the analyst position. Don't try to jump horizontally into an associate position, things like that. Don't try to cut it short. It will cost you later.
So it's very simple. If you Devashish, you allow me just a couple of this thing. So it's very simple, students. Yeah, once you are in the outside world, you'll be like, I'm getting X salary. For example, I'm getting, yeah, whatever, I'm getting X salary. If I jump my job, I'll be at a higher designation, making more salary. If I jump to this, I'll be there and making further more salary. In 2, 3, 4 years, you will actually be there where you want. But what Devashish is trying to say is you would have missed out on that learning. So initial few years of any job, any career that you choose is the perfect time to do stupid mistakes, learn, fall, get up, and get that experience, which will form the foundation, the base of when you become CXOs or when you become vice presidents, when you become that person. Because that time you don't have the leverage to make mistakes. So that foundation is very important. So don't miss out on that foundation. That's what the point is.
Yeah, and just to add, basically, progression is not linear in this kind of a field. So let's say you start off with a salary of 10 lakh rupees, random number. So you don't get to a huge level by jumping jobs and going from 10 to 12 to 14 to 16. You can, let's say, if you keep jumping jobs every year for that, where does that get you? It does not get you to 40 lakhs 4 years later, right? That math does not add up. So gain your skills, become worth 40 lakh rupee remuneration 4 years hence, rather than jumping at a designation or a salary, because that's a you know kind of like focusing on the trees and missing the forest. So we can move on to the last slide.
I think this is the last slide. Yeah. And
Yeah,
after that, we have the Q&A. So any questions, write on the chat box and Devashish.
sure. So just to close out, just some more tactical advice. And I think all my former teachers will hate me for saying this, but as you move ahead from where you are right now, every year your grades will matter less and less. It will never be zero. But my point is, grades will matter less and less as you go along. Technical skills will come with experience. As long as you're on the path, you will make progress on all these things. Work on your mindset right now, because that is the differentiator, as I was saying earlier. So, two things I want to briefly touch upon. There are certain things you should retain and certain things that you need to change and adopt to enter such a field. Retain two things. You, all of you are rock stars at this right now. These are very important skills, and I need them, but you are already better at them than I am. One is compartmentalization. You're used to taking short classes, juggling multiple subjects, co-curriculars at the same time. This is what you need in a demanding job later on, and this is what people miss out on. Try to retain this habit. You already have it. Just try not to lose it, or you will be sitting through a session 5, 6 years hence where someone will be teaching you compartmentalization again. Same thing goes for willingness to learn. Right now, you pick up new subjects every year where you know nothing, but you're not scared by that. Retain that mindset. And three things that you need to, the philosophical parts which you need to change. Again, practical philosophy. First, self discipline. You need to build your own. This is not spiritual advice. Simply put, if you cannot manage yourself, no one will let you manage money or other people. As simple as that. You need to be on top of your own discipline. Secondly, invest in soft skills. And more importantly, make them habits. Use them every day. You cannot say that I speak English well on Monday and I think logically on Tuesday. That does not make sense. So, if you are going to be someone with good soft skills, you have to be that someone on a daily basis. Make them habits. Don't make different personas, right? Be investment banking material all the time. And last is maturity. It's just about, this is a lesson that you learn the hard way when you join such a team, which is you need to take responsibility and ownership to whatever work is assigned to you. Something may not be your fault, but it's your problem to deal with. Someone else was sending you data, they sent you wrong data, your client meeting is tomorrow, you need to deal with it, right? So that's something you need to be mentally prepared for, that when a curveball comes, you're still the person batting. So yeah, that's, I think that's the last of my gyan. And in the next slide, I have some references for you, which I will not talk about, but feel free to check them out. Some books and some movies. I selected only the ones which are fun to read and fun to watch, and will still give you great insight. One online course that I recommend to people, you can look into it even at your stage, or maybe a year or two later. It's surprisingly robust. If you do this properly, I would say you would know more about financial modeling and valuation than a lot of people that I've actually worked with. So this is a good one. Check it out. And that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dev. Thanks a lot. I think it was very informative. And thanks a lot for sharing your experience with the students. Unfortunately, I think the timing is such that some students will have their classes, so we've not had the right attendance. But we'll be sharing these slides with all the students, and also students. There is our email ID. If you have any questions, you feel free to send a mail on this ID. We have to answer them. We have one question which I missed. Khushi Juneja asks, India is known to be the back office of the world. What's your opinion on this? I think this was during the time when you were discussing about front end and the back end on investing. So, Devashish, how is it in the world of investing?
Sure. So basically, there is some truth to it. I cannot deny that. So India has a lot of back office teams, but I would say that people associate a lot of stigma with back office. That's not really true anymore. So basically, let's say if you're in the back end team of KPMG, right? That does not mean you're doing formatting all day. You actually might do better work than a front end team sitting in the same building, because you may be working on a US transaction. So let's say tomorrow, if Google buys Facebook, right, then someone sitting in a KPMG backend team in India might get to work on that, which might be a bigger transaction than anything going on in front end in India, and they will get a good chunk of it. So
And I
first
think,
of all,
sorry, yeah, please.
so basically, try to disassociate this stigma between front office and back office. That being said, front office does have certain things which back office cannot prepare you for. The single biggest aspect of that is client management. So for all of you, my advice would be, if you can consider back office a great place to learn your skills. There is absolutely no downside of spending your analyst years in a back office if that's the opportunity you get. But if you see yourself in a team lead kind of a role in the long run, then you would want to have client management skills, which you will get in front office.
Yeah, so that's very important to, as I said, to know you. You like working with people, you like interacting with people, you have presentation skills, you are quick on your feet when it comes to thinking, you are diplomatic, front end is made for you. If you are not all these things, you want to be in investment, back end has almost the same kind of action these days and the same kind of visibility and the growth that you can expect from a front end. So no changes there. So I think we are done for the day. No more questions. So all of the students who were here, who are here, if you really enjoyed and had a learning experience, we have about 3 or 4 more such webinars on different topics. Go tell your friends how informative it was so that we can have a larger audience next time, because we won't be continuing this forever, right? But right now, what we have, make the most of it so that somewhere down the line, it will help you. And that's our guarantee that we have the best of the alumni to come and speak to you. And Devashish has been, he's working on a US shift, so he's been really kind to us to speak today. That's why. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot, Devashish. Thanks